Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. Happy Friday Eve. That's right, it's Thursday. We're almost there. Hope you're feeling good today. Appreciate you tuning into the show. If you're a regular follower or watcher, you know what to do. Make sure you smash that like button so that we can help spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty, which is what I'm all about. The host of the Wake Up America show is a red-blooded, freedom-loving American, and I hope that you are too, and that you'll enjoy the show today. If it's your first time watching us and you're still a little trepidatious, and you wonder why is he using such big words? Well, then maybe stick around for a little while, and if you enjoy it, maybe you'll give us a like a little bit later. We're going to have a good time today. We've got lots of great content, lots of great topics, and I hope that you will be entertained and informed by the time we are done. Infotainment, they call it. We're going to have a good time on the show today. Before I get started, though, I just want to give a big shout out and applause to my beautiful wife, Stephanie Peterson. I have to brag about her for just a very brief moment, because for the last 2-3 years, when the coronavirus pandemic really started, is when I started teaching her martial arts, because we needed a way to work out while we were at home. And she wanted to learn the real Japanese karate. So I was like, okay, I will teach you. I have been trained in the ways of the Japanese karate. So she started out, there were a few times when she actually would cry. She was really scared. And I have to say, it's been an unbelievable transformation that she has made. Last night we were in class, and she was doing kumite against this guy who's much bigger than her. He's bigger than me. And she wasn't intimidated. She was bouncing all around him, throwing jabs, flurries of punches and kicks, and making these angry faces at him and stuff like that, scoring points. And I think she only lost by 1 point. So I was actually really proud of her. Congratulations, Stephanie. You have become a fierce warrior. Love you very much, wifey. You may not even be able to hear me right now, but hopefully it gets back to you. All right, let's talk about the news. Tucker Carlson speaks out for the first time after his firing from Fox News. Go Tucker is trending on Twitter. How do you feel about it? Are you a yeah, go Tucker? Or are you a boo, he's just like all the rest of the mainstream media? What do you think? We'll hear from you this morning. You can text the show at 573-319-1586. Again, the text lines are open today. You can text us at 573-319-1586, and I will read your messages on the air, provided they are appropriate, of course. At 7:20 this morning, Disney is suing DeSantis, and many legal experts think they'll probably win. Hey, don't shoot the messenger, okay? I'm just reporting to you what I'm able to determine. I'll talk to you about that at 7:18 this morning, about Nikki Haley, presidential candidate Nikki Haley, had to say about Ron DeSantis's battle with Walt Disney. At 7:30 this morning, Charles Adams is going to join us for his first time on the Wake Up America show. If you're not familiar with him, he's on Twitter. His name is Charles Adams, and he goes by Big Angry Law. And yesterday he posted something in response to Matt Walsh talking about why gender transition surgery should be banned for adults, not just for minors. And Charles, being a lawyer, I think had an interesting point of view, and he definitely lives up to his moniker of Big Angry Law. It's like, whoa, he's very angry. His response to Matt Walsh. We'll have Charles Adams on the show today at 7:30. And as usual, the views that you hear on the Wake Up America show will be unorthodox. They're not going to be like what you hear on the mainstream media. They're not going to be necessarily just what you want to hear, but what I believe to be the truth. And sometimes the truth will, well, I'll say, I like this. I'll just use somebody else's quote that I stole. The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. Charles Adams will be here with us at 7:30 this morning to share his truths with you. His truths, my truths, your truths, our truths. And at 7:51 this morning, this is the segment that I'm actually the most excited to talk about today. Do you all remember that Gillette commercial, the Gillette shaving commercial from just a few years ago, where it was all about fighting toxic masculinity, and they're trying to sell razors to men by pooping all over them, I guess you could say, if I wasn't going to use the other word. How dare you?
How dare you?
How dare you, Greta?
How dare you?
How dare you? Well, this commercial of Gillette from 1989 has been making the rounds lately, going viral. And I'm going to compare and contrast a commercial from a few years ago of Gillette razors to the one from 1989. Maybe I feel like a big goof, but I actually was tearing up a little bit when I was watching the commercial from 1989, and I'm already talking about it too much because I'm excited to show this to you, and we'll do this at 7:51. At 8 o'clock this morning, the lovely Camellia Peterson with some toxic femininity will be joining us. No, she's not toxic. Camellia is going to talk to us today about why Gen Z is toxic. Zoomers are getting fired a lot from their jobs. I wonder why. We'll talk about that. Snowflakes at 8 o'clock with Camellia Peterson. It'll be a good time. And at 8:23 this morning, I'm looking at a picture of Joe Biden, who actually spoke to the press yesterday. I say spoke, but I should use air quotes. When he spoke to the press yesterday, a picture showed that he had been prepared for the questions that were going to come. Not just like prepared, like, oh, this is the topics we're going to talk about, but I mean prepared as in he was actually given the exact questions that the reporters were going to ask. Yikes. That is cringe. Cringe as hell. And we'll talk about that little bit after I speak to Camellia Peterson, and I'll show you that picture. At 8:30 today, his first time on the Wake Up America show. His name's Phil Kerpen. He's an old friend of mine. He actually was one of my earliest supporters when I ran for office. Phil Kerpen is the president of American Commitment, and he's talking to us today about what Joe Biden's very first veto will be. Well, here's a spoiler for you. It's his Joe Biden's very first veto was something that protected woke politics in corporations. We'll talk about that at 8:35 today when Phil Kerpen joins us on camera. Should be great. And at 8:49 today, if we have enough time, and I really hope we do, because honestly, I've had this story every single day and I've had to move it because there have been every single day this week, there's been huge, massive, earth-shattering breaking news, and I just haven't been able to get to the fun stuff. So maybe I'll save it for tomorrow if I don't get to it today, because my lovely wife Stephanie will be with us for Family Friday. And at 8:49, I hope to be able to get to the best 80s movies of all time, ranked. Yes, ranked, meaning that the number one is the best one, the number two is the second best one, and all that. And if you disagree with me, you're wrong. Sorry, I don't make the rules. Well, actually, I do make the rules, and I enforce them like a dictator. Today, we're going to have a lot of fun on the Wake Up America show. I'm getting ready to play Tucker Carlson clip for you, but I wanted to show you, oh, there's camera one, there's camera two. What's camera three? Oh, looky there. Oh, that's nice. Not just because you're looking at my crotch there, but check out these awesome American flag shoes that you can get at ap4libertyshop.com. You like my camera three there? Things can get a little naughty here in this room. Be careful. Nathan, you shouldn't have put it a little too high. Maybe a little bit lower on my feet would have been better so that everybody isn't like looking at my crotch. Looks like I had gender transition surgery. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. All right, let's play Tucker Carlson's clip of what he had to say yesterday for his first time, because I know you come here for the news, not just for my crotch shots, okay? Let's do it. What did Tucker Carlson have to say?
One of the first things you realize when you step outside the noise for a few days is how many genuinely nice people there are in this country. Kind and decent people, people who really care about what's true, and a bunch of hilarious people also. A lot of those. It's got to be
Pause. What's interesting about this is it looks like it's the set from his Fox Nation show that Tucker did. So this must be because we saw video of him yesterday in Florida. So he must have built out his Fox Nation set in his Florida home. And what's also very interesting is that you can tell from the audio that it's not been professionally mic'd. He might have his own microphones and things like that, but there's a little bit of an echo in the room. So he may have even shot this by himself, which is interesting.
The population, even now. So that's heartening. The other thing you notice when you take a little time off is how unbelievably stupid most of the debates you see on television are. They're completely irrelevant. They mean nothing. In 5 years, we won't even remember that we had them. Trust me, as someone who's participated. And yet at the same time, and this is the amazing thing, the undeniably big topics, the ones that will define our future, get virtually no discussion at all. War, civil liberties, emerging science, demographic change, corporate power, natural resources.
Beautiful. Obviously, he's hitting a lot of big topics on there, and I like that he's mentioned war as the very first thing. Fascinating to note that yesterday, top Pentagon officials, top brass at the Pentagon were actually celebrating the removal of Tucker Carlson, which if you let's say you're a libertarian and you weren't a big Tucker Carlson fan, that right there ought to throw up some red flags for you about what it was that he was saying that was bothering them so much. Let's
When was
continue.
the last time you heard a legitimate debate about any of those issues? It's been a
Hmm,
long time. Debates like
very
that are
rare.
not permitted in American media. Both political parties and their donors have reached consensus on what benefits them, and they actively collude to shut down any conversation about it. Suddenly, the United States looks very much like a one party state.
Yeah.
That's a depressing realization, but it's not permanent. Our current orthodoxies won't last. They're brain dead. Nobody actually believes them. Hardly anyone's life is improved by them.
Well, the problem is, and again, this is a lot of this is very broad and ambiguous and open to interpretation. When he says our current orthodoxies won't last, it's hard to suss out his meaning there. I mean, especially when he uses the plural after sort of suggesting that we have a uniparty state, which would suggest that we really only have an orthodoxy, which is what I would sort of suggest that those people who are in power at the moment all seem to hold the very same view about a variety of issues, whether it's the war in Ukraine, whether it's about government spending or taxation, they all very much hold on orthodoxy. And perhaps we can disagree on certain things here or there, you and I, people who are, a regular people. But at the very, very top, yes, there is very much a consensus about what needs to be done about the issues that he brought up. Let's continue.
This moment is too inherently ridiculous to continue, and so it won't. The people in charge know this. That's why they're hysterical and aggressive. They're afraid.
Hmm.
They've given up
Yes.
persuasion. They're resorting to force. But it won't work. When honest people say what's true, calmly and without embarrassment, they become powerful. At the same time, the liars who've been trying to silence them shrink and they become weaker. That's the iron law of the universe. True things prevail. Where
I wish that was true, but I'm not sure that that is the case. Unfortunately, it appears I'm more akin to Ron Paul when he made a statement that truth is treason in the empire of lies. And truth is very much not in power at this moment in American history. Again, an ambiguous statement there from Tucker. I'm kind of like, where's the beef here? Because we're all coming up on the end of this video. And of course, everybody wants to know what he's going to do next. It was interesting to see the responses and reactions to Tucker's statement yesterday on the spectrum across left and right. I see some interesting comments from our friends over on Rumble this morning. Good morning to you, Fed Up Kentuckian, Kermode Bear, Germ Theory of Disease, and Burt Crash. Nice to see you all over there. It's exciting to see how much bigger the audience is over on Rumble. And again, it's not to make my Cantina crew jealous over on YouTube. I'm glad you're there. But it's just nice to see that on that free speech platform that we've got so many people watching and commenting. Please smash that like button on either of the networks. But Kermode Bear says Tucker is interesting, too much of a statist for my taste, but he has worthwhile commentary. It will be interesting to see what happens next now that he doesn't have have to answer to a corporate overlord. I think that's really it too. And yesterday, Judge Napolitano was talking about how he might be gagged for the next 3 years. But of course, he's speaking out now, so to imply that he can speak out, it's possible Tucker gets sued by Fox News if he tries to go to a competing network because his contract should last for another 2 to 3 years. And if he's paid out during that time, I'm guessing he can't take another job. Of course, there's probably going to be lawsuits. Tucker might sue Fox News for his ability to be able to earn a living, but depending on how these contracts are enforced, it'll be interesting to see how it susses out. I also thought it was interesting too. Howard Stern made a statement about the Tucker Carlson firing that's related to this, the commenter, what they said on Rumble. And Howard Stern was saying that Tucker had forgotten that he was a worker bee for Rupert Murdoch. And that is true, right? You take the king's coin, you sing the king's song. I was just watching a forum from one of my old employers last night in the mainstream media, and it was very, shall we say, poorly produced, if you will. Not to say that the content was bad, but it was just very difficult to watch because it didn't have all these kind of bells and whistles and fun things going on, the whirly gigs and all that stuff that you kind of have to have in terms of keeping an audience's attention to an extent, although there are plenty of people who don't have bells and whistles and get huge followers because of the interesting things that they say. But if you're barely interesting, you better have some bells and whistles, says Austin on his bells and whistles show. But it's true that what Howard Stern said, that Tucker was a worker bee and now he's free, and depending on his contract, he should be able to say the things that he really wants or that he would like to say. If that's the case, I'm curious of why he didn't actually say any of that in this speech here, because this seemed to me to be more of a sort of typical monologue that you might get on Tucker Carlson tonight, right? Not so much, if you guys are wondering why I'm shiny, it's because I had lotion on my face was dry. But if you're Tucker Carlson didn't really tell us what we wanted to know, which is, well, why are you fired? What are you going to do next? Give us some information. I agree with him in what he has to say. Again, it's hard to disagree when it's rather ambiguous and open to interpretation. That, I mean, nobody disagrees, I think, at least if you're not a member of the establishment, nobody disagrees with the fact that we have terrible, stupid, pointless debates in this country that don't actually tackle the issues that really matter, of which he really listed there. And look at the Democratic Party, for example, perfect example of that. They're not going to have presidential debates because Joe Biden is not going to debate RFK Jr. He's not going to debate any of the other candidates who are running against him in the Democratic Party. And that's sad. It's a shame. We didn't have debates for my Senate campaign here in 2018. It was just an anointment. Donald Trump says, that's the candidate that I want. And everybody just says, okay, fine. And there's not going to be any debate. And that's how it is. And that's part of the problem in this country. You might like Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri because he's on your side or he agrees with you on certain social issues or what have you. But he should have to face a debate in order to suss out what it is that he truly believes. And I probably could have pointed out some of the things in those debates that would have made you think, hey, maybe Austin's a better candidate. And I probably would have gotten more votes if that was the case. But again, the establishment doesn't want that. I don't care if it's Donald Trump and his establishment or Joe Biden and his establishment. The fact of the matter is that the establishment does not want to have debates about issues like Ukraine. They do not want to have debates about issues like vaccinations. Justin Trudeau is at this moment trying to rewrite history of how he handled vaccinations to claim that he didn't actually mandate people get the jab. What the hell? What the hell? Again, they will rewrite history. They will rewrite history. The winners will rewrite history if we do not fight and we do not win for our ideals. Our enemies will tell our stories, and we certainly do not want our enemies telling our stories or teaching our children. You can text the show today with your thoughts at 573-319-1586. We are live streaming right now at 7:21 a.m. Central Time on the 27th of April, and if you'd like to chime in and have your voice heard, you can do that by texting us at 573-319-1586. Andy Opperman just sent us an awesome pic. He got his Mises bust, his Ludwig von Mises bust. I'm going to go ahead and grab that picture and share that with you guys so that you can see it as well over on the stream. But I'll do that in just a couple minutes. I'll have to go to a commercial break and set it up for you. Glenn Beck says that he thinks he knows why Tucker Carlson was fired. Take a listen.
Speech last Friday. And Friday apparently is the night that they made the decision. And he gave a speech for the 50th anniversary of the Heritage Foundation. And he said this.
It's completely obvious. And I think two things. One, we should say that and stop engaging in these totally fraudulent debates where we are using the terms that we used in 1991 when I started at Heritage, as if maybe, I could just win the debate if I marshaled more facts. I've tried that, doesn't work. And two, maybe we should all take just like 10 minutes a day to say a prayer about it. I'm serious, why not? And I'm saying that to you, not as some kind of evangelist, I'm literally saying that to you as an Episcopalian. The Samaritans of our time. I'm coming to you from the most humble and lowly theological position you can. I'm literally an Episcopalian, okay?
And even I have concluded it might be worth taking just 10 minutes out of your busy schedule to say a prayer for the future. And I hope you will.
Okay, now let me give you some context on this. He was talking about the difference of good and evil and, marshaling, facts to fight things like CRT and DEI, et cetera, et cetera. Now, Rupert Murdoch's son, is the one that made the decision to fire Carlson along with Suzanne Scott. This is something that bothers Rupert deeply bothers him. I was told not to use the word God on the air anymore. And I was like, wow, okay. And they're like, you got to stop using it. And 3 months go by, and he comes back, and he says, do you know how many times? Do you not remember when I said, don't talk about God all the time? And I said, yes. And he said, do you know how many times you've said God on the air since that? I looked at him, and I kind of laughed, and I said, you counted? And he said, I can't remember the number, but it was like 91 times. I'm like, huh? Now stop it. Okay, well, I didn't. But that really bothered them.
It's interesting. Well, yeah, you're talking about, Australians who are not so much in the same tradition as us Americans are. We're very deeply religious here. Okay, I've got to go to commercial break and get my buddy Charles Adams. Charles, at Big Angry Law, responded to Matt Walsh, who says that we should ban gender reassignment surgery for adults, not kids. Adults. Gender reassignment surgery. I thought that this was America, sir. America, if I want to cut my pickle off and wear American flag sneakers, well, that's my right. Well, American flag sneakers, you can get at AP for Liberty shop. Gender reassignment surgery, you'll have to get somewhere else. We'll be right back with more on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericashow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today. Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Peterson stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apeforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apeforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit aporlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.
Good morning. Rise and freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. All right. Austin ain't lying. Every once in a while, I get a tweet that retweets me that says Austin ain't lying. And I check it out. And it's always this one guy, Charles Adams. And he hasn't been on this show yet. So I'm introducing you to him today. I agree with him frequently because he agrees with me. He's a Houston TV and radio loudmouth. His words, not mine. A criminal defense and injury lawyer, ex-police, and judge. He's speaking out right now about the transgender issue after Matt Walsh had stated that all gender transition surgery should be banned, no matter the age of the patient. Joining us now, Charles Adams at Big Angry Law. How you doing, Charles? Thanks for joining us.
I'm good. Thank you for having me on, Austin.
Yeah, glad to have you here. So Matt Walsh says this, that all gender transition surgeries should be banned, no matter the age of the patient. It should not be legal for doctors to perform this kind of Frankenstein butchery on anyone. This should not be a controversial position. And yet with you, it is controversial. Charles, can you explain?
Well, I mean, we can make that argument about any plastic surgery, anyone that wants to change their body to fit the image of themselves that they have in their head. And while I do think there are some enormous concerns evidenced by the profiteering by both the pharmaceutical industry and plastic surgeons, I've had a conversation with one on children, and there is also the government on both sides, the right and left, is wanting to step between parents and the decision-making they make for their children, and I completely disagree with that. But the suggestion, and many people that consider themselves liberty-oriented are often only interested in the flavors of liberty that they find attractive or they find moral. And my vision of liberty is allowing adults to do whatever they want as long as they're not intruding on the rights of others, right? I take what would be defined by many on the left as a transphobic position that sports should be defined, at least for women, by biological gender at birth. We've seen time and time again when Venus and Serena played the 203rd seed tennis player years ago to make the point on men versus women tennis, and they both lost handedly. Admitted there's really not competition. We saw this middle-aged marathoner who was born a male beat 14,000 women in the London Marathon just last week. And I think we've reached absurdity there. But people forget that we've had this very absurd position about homosexuality for centuries. And we're getting extremist rhetoric from people like Alejandra Carvajal, a Harvard lecturer, who said, death before detransition. And obviously, we're not seeing the manifesto of the horrible murderer in Nashville, because clearly it evidenced stuff that doesn't fit the political narrative. But we forget that gay people were actually persecuted for a very long time. And, Alan Turing is my favorite example. Alan Turing saved the world from Nazi Germany. Alan Turing created the modern computer. Alan Turing also committed suicide after he was convicted of homosexuality in the United Kingdom in the 50s. That's insane, right? A bunch of liberty-oriented people love them some Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is a dishonest, pandering idiot, right? And when Ted Cruz went to Kentucky and stood with Kim Davis and said, hey, I don't want gay people to be married. Kim Davis, I respect her. Like, I think Jack Phillips, the baker in Colorado, is being persecuted, right? If you don't want to create a specific piece of art, whether it's cake or actual art, because of your religious beliefs, you shouldn't have to. But if you're a police officer or you're any government official, you can't simply say, oh, I'm not going to do my job because I disagree with it, right? And at that point, you're infringing on people's liberties. So maybe we should just consider telling gay adults that it's perfectly okay to be gay, and maybe we wouldn't have all this nonsense and all this sad self-loathing that leads many to look for other avenues to appear and express themselves. But that's just me.
Wow, a blistering critique from our friend Charles Adams, who's joining us on the show. If you're tuning in right now, I'm your host, Austin Peterson. Thanks for watching the Wake Up America show. Click that like button if you're watching us over on Rumble or on YouTube. And I see a lot of you are watching us over on Rumble. We'd be grateful to have you subscribe to the channel as well, so you can get updates when we go live to share the message of economic freedom and personal liberty, which Charles Adams has, I think, very artfully elocuted, shall we say, himself. He's very erudite. I like to use big words with people who I know will understand them, Charles. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your thoughts on this topic. Let's play devil's advocate here for just a moment. Let's say I'll take the Matt Walsh side of things and say, well, okay, so you legalized gay marriage, and in the 1980s, the moral majority, Jerry Falwell and many others, said it's a slippery slope, that if you legalize gay marriage, that they're going to start that gay marriage is the first step, and then they're going to start coming for your kids. It's hard to look back into the past, Charles, and say that they were wrong about that prediction, because they are coming for our kids. And what's going on at pride parades, in my mind, is criminal, and what's being done to children is absolutely criminal. But do you think it wasn't a slippery slope? Were they wrong in the 1980s?
No, I think we absurdly discriminated against gay people and demonized them for many, many years, right? And then we expect the snapback to be, oh, okay, well, we're okay now. And the reality is that many people, I mean, Ted Cruz is a perfect example, and Ted Cruz has gay people in his life. He's the worst kind of conservative, right? He's the one, and we see this in conservative punditry as well. I do talk radio. I know some talk radio hosts pretty well. That they quietly tell their friends and their sponsors that aren't, I just say that for radio. I just say that for the idiots that are listening to me. I don't really believe it. Ted Cruz does the same thing to the gay people in his life. Well, of course, I don't believe that stuff. I just say it. And we've had that horrible rhetoric. So now we're surprised that there's extremist rhetoric on the other side. I hate all extremism, right? And as a parent, I don't think anyone should be interfering between a parent and a child unless that parent is physically abusing the child or doing something horrible. And there are people on the left that suggest that denying a child, trans therapies is abuse. It's absolutely not, right? The suicide rates for children, for trans children, are horrifying and heartbreaking, right? But they actually seem to are elevated in a post-transition environment. And the transition surgery often robs people of any ability to enjoy the sexual function for the rest of their life, right? And it has a lot of consequences. There are people that absolutely feel they can't live in their body, and they're going to, they don't want to live if they can't transition. And it's that very narrow group of people that absolutely, well, anyone should be afforded the right. Your real problem in this arena from the for-profit medical industry was created when Obama decided to compel all insurance carriers to include gender transition, now called affirmation. Words are important, and we change words to change meanings. It's included in all of our insurance. Like, we can't make an insurance policy that doesn't include it. And then it became a huge profit driver for hospitals, for the pharmaceutical industry. There's a company. So there are concerns, and there are valid concerns, but those concerns stop when you're telling an adult, hey, you can't do something that you want to do. And you compound that, and like Jake Shields, friend of mine, like had him on the show a few times back when I did guests before I got lazy with it and just ranted myself. I like Jake personally, but he tweeted something this week about the need to execute doctors, and that's insane. And Jake clearly knows violence. He's an MMA fighter, but I don't know if he knows death, right? And I've been around death, and it's absolutely horrifying, especially violent death. It's absolutely horrifying. As I said, Alejandro Carball tweeting this week, death before detransition. We have a lot of people that I would suppose don't have a great familiarity with the horror of actual murder and death, talking about death. And it's horrible. And maybe we should just all calm down. Maybe we should just decide, hey, we're going to let adults raise their kids. We're going to go back to keeping sex out of elementary school, about books that talk about butt plugs and lube being available to kids in junior high. Well, that's insane. On the flip side, high school kids who are gay absolutely need to be told, you know what? It's okay. It's normal. It's all right. And that is not intruding on the parent role. However, when you start encouraging kids to change their gender identity and change and transition without the parent involvement, well, that's insane. But again, the right has made that far more overblown than it should. And what's really crazy, Austin, is that we're talking about this when, of course, China and Russia and the new axis are coming for the America. We're talking about switching away from the dollar. And while it might lead to more, and I think long-term, it leads to a whole lot of liberty, because obviously China is the great evil of our age, not the Chinese people, but the Chinese government. The Chinese people actually suffer far more from the Chinese government than anyone else. And there's not a lot of liberty here, but there's absolutely no liberty in that country, right? And I mean, there are greater things to worry about. The Fed and Biden have driven the country into a ditch economically. I mean, I don't know if you saw it. I'm sure you did. Now, those of us with good credit, and mind you, I grew up poor, made some good money, but I learned very early on, I don't pay bills on time. So my wife pays the bills. So we spent years, we got great credit. Well, if I got a mortgage today, I'd have to pay more, because Biden has decided people with good credit should pay for people with crap credit, right? It's insane. And we talk about all this stuff, and we have all the, why are we arguing so much about gender stuff? Why are we talking about it so much, Austin? Because the government wants us to. Because if we're all pissed off about this, we don't notice that they're not doing their damn job. They're not increasing liberty for any Americans, right? I mean, let's talk about marijuana. Let's talk about the drug war. When I was at Harvard Law, no big deal. I did my thesis on why we should end the drug war 2 decades ago, long before it was cool, because it's an instrument of oppression on the poor and people of color. Let people get high. Don't let people engage in narco-terrorism. Don't let methamphetamine and fentanyl flood our streets. But if you could just go buy safe pills that'll probably ruin your life, but they're not going to kill you right away, instead, it wouldn't be going to the narco-terrorists. Have a secure, controlled border, right? But allow poor people to immigrate, because that's what this country was built on, right? Instead of just rich people. And then maybe all this money wouldn't be going to the narco-terrorists who are now human traffickers. Hey, if someone wants to buy sex, right? Well, let it be licensed and let people go do it, because then maybe women won't be coerced and forced into it. But those are all simple solutions that our government doesn't want us to talk about. Instead, we're all fighting about gay. And being gay isn't evil. Being gay isn't immoral. You can be immoral and gay. You can be immoral and straight. But why does anyone care? And who's the one to define other people's morality? As long as it's not trampling someone's rights, why do you care?
Normally, I would cut off a guest who went on that long, but that was so no. That was so damn good in the way that you just completely and fully articulated the libertarian position there that actually I feel like I need a cigarette after that. It's so good. My wife's gonna be jealous.
I'm a sexy man. I get it.
That's a very sexy point of view. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm your host, Austin Peterson. I'm speaking to Charles Adams. You can follow him at Big Angry Law on Instagram, on Twitter. He is a great follow. I have to say, though, earlier you were saying that you hate political extremists, but in a sense, in a way, Charles, compared to what most people believe, or at least most people in politics believe, you're taking the extreme positions here, right? I mean, and I agree with probably 90% of everything that you just said there. I consider myself a political extremist because we are such outliers in terms of the actual governing bodies of the people in the United States. The Ted Cruz is, like you articulated. Again, you're from Texas, so he's your senator. My senator, Josh Hawley, who seems to tilting at windmills every other day. It seems picking fights that obviously he can't win, starting fights that the Democrats then continue. Like for example, the attempt to ban TikTok, which turned into the what was it, the Restrict Act, right? So it's
Right.
like always the best intentions of these politicians, but I mean, like, you don't consider yourself to be a political extremist? I mean, outlier, maybe a better point of view,
I
better way to
don't
describe it.
like when you talk about the best intentions. I don't think our politicians have the best intentions. And Holly and Cruz specifically, both Ivy League educated. Like I went to Harvard Law School for a master's of law after I was a cop, after I worked my way through undergrad and in my first law degree, working as a police officer, worked all my life, didn't grow up with money, right? These guys are these little silver spoon Ivy League babies who are very brilliant men who are very good at lying to people and pandering to facilitate whatever narrative they see they need to get elected, right? For a fact that Ted Cruz is one that, I don't really mean that stuff. And that infuriates me about him. Not the fact that he looks like a sweaty old grown, but the Restrict Act is horrifying, right? It's horrifying. It is the Patriot Act on incredible steroids. But I don't see myself I really see myself as a centrist. I have huge issues with the Republican Party. I have huge issues with the Democratic Party. I don't know who is worse, right? Like, frankly, if you want economic liberty, you probably should vote Republican, right? If social liberty is more important to you, then probably Democrat, but maybe not so much anymore. I don't really know, right? Because it doesn't seem like anyone cares. But then you go to a libertarian convention, and man, that's a bit crazy too, right? So I kind of find myself sitting in the middle thinking, Jesus Christ, why are you all so crazy? I think I am with most Americans. I think most Americans just want to work hard, build businesses, support their families, see their children succeed, and be left the F. I don't think you can curse on here. Leave,
No, you're right.
The F alone.
Yeah, you're right, Charles. But here's the thing: don't most of those Americans that probably agree with you and I not actually vote? It seems like the people with the axe to grind, the people who want to force their views on other people, they're the ones who show up at the ballot box. Am I wrong?
I think the middle actually votes. I think we're just excluded from the political process by the binary of the two-party system, right? And I think if California gets a whole lot of things wrong, right? Although it's beautiful out there, people that say they hate it, I'm like, maybe you should go spend some time in Southern California. As long as you're not living there and paying the taxes, it's pretty perfect. But I will tell you, it's an open primary that allows just everyone to run in both, and it's a much better system than the two extremists from each side win, and they go head to head. And then we as Americans are just sitting there like, which horrible person do I vote for from which party? And then you really have to look at who harms you the least, right? And that's who you vote for. And of course, people participate the least in municipal elections. And that's why you have such crazies running Seattle and Portland. They used to be the most beautiful cities in this country and two of the most beautiful cities in the world. And they're absolute hellholes. Los Angeles, just in the last 10 years, has taken this incredible turn into like West Hollywood. Used to be a lovely city. It's the neighborhood of Los Angeles and where you find the Comedy Store and a lot of great art scenes. It's insane. People are setting up tents in front of people's houses, right? You had a former city commissioner in San Francisco get beat by a transient who then bragged about it to a television reporter because he told him to stop living on his elderly mother's porch, right? Beat him with a pipe. That's crazy. People don't go to jail now for doing crime. Swear to God, Austin. I had a friend of mine call because these homeless people had set up in front of his house. He called the police. They refused to do anything, but then they wrote his wife a ticket because she was partially blocking the sidewalk, their bumper in their driveway. This is the crazy, and this happened yesterday, right? This is the crazy world we live in where the participatory don't matter and the non-participatory are getting these local governments that are far, far extremist left are kowtowing to them. So you as a citizen, well, I don't want to put up with that. So I guess I got to vote this other side. And then you have this other side that wants everyone in jail for smoking weed or doing any little thing and wants to rob everybody of their rights and tell people how they want to live Houston is the place where 2 gay men were arrested not 2 decades ago for having gay sex in the privacy of their own home, not with an open window, nothing, right? That, of course, went to the Supreme Court. I was actually at the Court of Appeals here in Houston as a briefing attorney when that case was decided, and they found it to be constitutional to tell people how they can have sex in their home. I mean, it's insane, right? It's insane that we have a whole nation of minded people that are left with no choice but to vote for one clown or the other. But it's not extremism. We're normal. They're abnormal. That's why they're the narcissists that go run for office. Sorry.
Charles, I'm one of those narcissists. I ran unsuccessfully. If you're just tuning in, I'm speaking to Charles Adams at Big Angry Law. Charles, my audience is begging not to go to commercial break because they're enjoying you so much. Can I ask you one more question and let you rant about that? So Trump versus Biden. I think I saw a poll that said that only 33% of people in the United States want to see that happen. The vast majority of people in the country do not want to see another Joe Biden versus Donald Trump rematch. What about you?
I talked about this on the local Fox affiliate last night, where I have a segment doing just this ranting. I mean, Joe Biden's actively protecting his son from process servers from his stripper baby mama by letting him live in the White House. That's insane. It should be on the front page of every paper, but it's not, because it's Joe Biden, right? Donald Trump was held to a completely different journalistic standard, right? We heard the former director of the CIA admit Blinken to saying the Biden laptop was fake, right? And he went along with it, encouraged other people to protect the Biden candidacy. That's far worse than Watergate, right? Joe Biden got busted for plagiarism in law school. In law school, they tell you can't lie, right? He had an excuse. Joe Biden got busted for plagiarism the first time he ran for president. Joe Biden has been influence peddling and has been a corrupt politician of the most extreme his entire life. He is an absolute scumbag. Donald Trump's not much better, right? But Donald Trump is a great salesman. He's a genius, just like Joe Biden's a genius politician. They're wonderful manipulators, right? And neither of them are what this country needs. But if you had to straight up, right? So if you're a gay person, right, you're going to vote for Joe Biden. If you're somebody worried about women having the individual right to make decision-making about abortion, you're going to vote for Joe Biden. If there are social issues that align with your positions, you're going to vote for Joe Biden. If you're somebody that doesn't want an economy in the crap, or doesn't, because we can call the Fed independent all they want. The hell they are, right? The Fed is intentionally ruining the American economy for the middle class, right? Joe Biden has driven this economy into a ditch. And of course, journalists don't say that because, well, they're all on Team Biden. And so if you're somebody that just wants some economic liberty, you're probably put in a position where you got to vote for Trump. We aren't going to have a choice, right? We know this is going to be the outcome. The DNC isn't even allowing debates, and no one's saying, Jesus, how un-American is that, right? You don't see that on headlines everywhere because journalism is dead, right? Like, I do punditry on a low level, and the way to be, syndicated, I might be the most popular show on my station, but the way to get syndicated, which I will never be, is pick a team and lie, right? I don't, right? I actually say what I feel, which some people hate me for. People will call my office and bug my secretary because now I broadcast from the house instead of from iHeart. But people want to be pandered to. They don't want to learn anything, and they don't want to hear. And that's what's, and by people, I don't mean people generally. I mean the screaming lunatics on social media. So I don't think we'll have a choice. I can't tell people how to vote. I am disgusted, but I do think I agree with you, Austin. Most people are disgusted. Can America do better? Maybe Austin Peterson should run.
Don't think so anymore. I think that ship has definitely sailed. So I'll stick to punditry and keep a nice small audience where I can be honest with people and have guests like you. Charles Adams at Big Angry Law. Anything else you'd like to share with our listeners before we let you go, Charles?
No, thank you so much for having me on, Austin. I think your takes are brilliant, and you're really one of the handful of pundits that I enjoy listening to and reading your thoughts. And this might sound like ask history, but it's absolutely true. You are one of the important voices in America today.
I appreciate that. And the reason I believe you is because I don't pay you, and there's nothing that I could do for you. So thank you very much, Charles. Have a great day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. That was Charles Adams. You can follow him at Big Angry Law on Twitter and on Instagram. Great pundit and somebody that I like to listen to. I didn't know that he went to Harvard Law. Jeez. I got kind of intimidated there at the very last minute. How about Camellia Peterson? Would you like to hear what she has to say about such things? She's a great guest, and she joins us every Tuesday and Thursday. Hey, how about this? Before you go, real quick, let's hit the clean scene. Camera number 3. I got to show this to my audience here. Designed by me, AP for Liberty, American flag shoes. Order them now so that they'll be there by the 4th of July. You know, do you think anybody wants a roundhouse kick to the face while I'm wearing one of these bad boys? I don't think so. If you want to learn AP Kwando, go to ap4libertyshop.com. Get your own pair of American flag sneakers. Super comfortable, very soft, great support, and you can support America, land that I love. All right, we'll be back with Camellia when we return on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Hit that like button.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here, and we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, you know, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupAmericaShow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
Thank you for watching the Wake Up America America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1, you can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself or me mum, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great! Number 2, most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3, you're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it, and you help me Pops build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell, this commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Did you like Charles Adams? Now you see why they call him Big Angry Law. I thought that was a really great segment, and I didn't realize he was that libertarian, but I guess we're going to have him back because I see he got a lot of good feedback from the Cantina crew over on YouTube. Good morning to all of our friends. Quest Fanning, Maria Krabs, The Reveal of Liberty, Mary Kramer, Chris Morrill, Studio 314, my new favorite friend, who's joining us. Andy Opperman is with us as well. And you know who the #1 Cantina crew member is? Well, she's here with us right now. Camelia Peterson. Good morning, CJ. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm doing great. Thank you. Yes, I am OG Cantina, right?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. It's really exciting to see how big an audience we have over on Rumble as well. Give them a big shout out. Way more people over there on Rumble. It's been awesome. They've been putting us on the front page and getting us out there. And if you're watching us on Rumble, make sure you click that like button to help us spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty. CJ, did you get to hear that segment with Charles at all?
I heard most of it. I was in and out just a little bit. I heard most of it. But the thing is I've seen him on Twitter before, but like you said, I didn't realize that he was that libertarian.
Me
And
either.
in fact, when he first started talking about it, I was like, as libertarian as I am, I'm not even sure if I agree with this. But then he kept going and I think, we probably do, but
Yeah. Well, I was shocked at just how libertarian he was, and I didn't know that he went to Harvard Law School, and he was also a judge. He was a police officer, so I mean, you'd think that he would, being a former police officer, being a former judge, he would be more kind of hard right conservative. But nah, he's definitely down the line. We need to book him for some speaking gigs or something like that. Honestly.
Yeah, that was awesome. He did mince words about it, which is why he has the reputation he has, right?
A Big Angry Law. Well, if you liked that segment, make sure you smash that like button. CJ, I'm not a Zoomer. I'm not. I'm what they call a geriatric millennial, and I might be. Share something in common with Zoomers in that employers don't really like to keep me around. Maybe I'm more trouble than I'm worth. I'm just forever required to be able to have a backup plan and be able to work for myself. But apparently, a lot of Generation Z are in the same situation as I am. Did you see this story that I shared with you yesterday?
I did, and it's funny you say that because for you, I don't think it's a matter of I don't think it's a generational thing. I think that there are just some people who are cut from a different cloth, and they're more entrepreneurial, and they prefer to go their own way and walk to the beat of their own drum. And my dad is actually like that too. And I can only think of one time in all my growing up years, well, and since then, I can only think of 1 or 2 times at most that he ever actually worked for someone. Otherwise, he was always in business for himself, had lots of different businesses, but did a lot of general contracting. But, looking back, I can kind of see why that is now, because he had that very, whether he would call it that or not, but that very entrepreneurial, rebel libertarian spirit. And he was, just going to make his own way.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, I'm of a cut from a similar cloth, but I don't know that Generation Z is necessarily all that entrepreneurial. What was this story? What was the crux of it that I shared with you yesterday?
Right. So they did a survey of employers, and 3 out of 4 of them agreed that Gen Z employees were more difficult to work with. And in fact, 65% of the people that they interviewed said that they have to fire Gen Z employees more often. And 1 in 8 of those employers had let a Gen Z employee go less than a week after they started. So there's a little bit of a trend there, which is not great. I think there's probably a lot of reasons for that, but it was a really interesting article, and it brought out a few things. I think employers have legitimate concerns, when it comes to dealing with this generation. Because I mean, if you think about it, this is the generation of the digital age. They have grown up completely online. Um, and one of the most interesting things that I saw in here was that they said that these kids are difficult to deal with, but particularly when it comes to language and communication skills. And I can see that somewhat now. And like, don't get me wrong, I'm one of those people. I can't stand it when people go around like kids these days, and they're, bashing on all the kids, because I don't agree with that. And, maybe I'm biased just because of the circle of people I've been in and my own kids. And I see a lot of great Gen Z kids out there, but I can't deny that I think there probably is a trend at large in some of the things that they're talking about here. So, and when they talk about language, it's like employers don't know what they can say without offending someone or triggering them. And then there's that fear of getting canceled, because what do people do now when they've got a problem with their employer? They go put it all over social media, and then there's a whole lot of outrage and backlash. And whether it's justified or not, you kind of got your life ruined as a result of all of the drama. But one of the other things that they brought out is that they also observe a lack of professionalism, particularly in an office setting, just basic things like eye contact and and concentration, which this does not surprise me, because I think we've all started to experience this as we're on our phones and computers more, is that it definitely affects your attention span and your concentration. And so they during meetings they're on their phones at the same time, and they're truly not paying attention. So I think that part of this is somewhat a result of, we've got to learn how to cope with the effects of the digital age and how we deal with that. But I also think too, over the last few years, we locked everything down for COVID. And so they didn't have to go out and interact with people all the time. People were not doing social activities as much, whether it was church or whether it was other organizations or going out with friends, school, whatnot. And so they don't get that real life experience of interacting with people and the natural consequences that come with that. So
Yeah, and so people are having trouble managing their expectations too, because to a certain extent, I think people got used to not working, right? They got used to, for a short time, they were getting government checks, although that did end. I don't think that was entirely part of the reason, but I imagine employers also got used to a certain productivity level from employees that I think a lot of people sort of look at now and are pushing back against, to a certain extent. I mean, and workers have every right to sort of like demand, hey, this is what it's going to be. I can only work this many time or days or hours, right? And you have to come to a mutual agreement there. But employers are kind of sort of used to just telling them how it's going to be and saying, my way or the highway. And ultimately they can do that by firing them, which is what I think a lot of them are doing with this Generation Z, right? They're just telling them, hey, there's the door. But I mean, at the end of the day, I don't necessarily blame people who are trying to find like a work-life balance,
Sure. And we've talked about this before, how that, employers very often are not adapting well to the changing culture and the changing workplace and what the options are for people. And I think in order to keep people, in person, on site, your employers are probably going to have to do some adapting too. One of the interesting things that they talked about in this was they said 37% in another study, 37% of Gen Z people had rejected an assignment based on their personal ethics. And it was kind of pointing towards like this social justice fundamentalism that's kind of been on the rise, and that Gen Z tends to bring their politics into the workplace more. And then from the employer's perspective, one of the things that they said about this was that they're always uncertain as to how to approach that because it feels like the line keeps getting redrawn every day. And I can see that because I mean, like you never know, like, what are we going to be offended about today?
Sure.
And people are a lot more easily offended.
It's true, but there is like the opposite side of that is that I've honestly been in some of my workplaces, but it's the media is a very ethically compromised industry anyway. But I've been put in that situation where you are asked to do something that you are morally opposed to, and I got to
Yeah.
say that's really one of the biggest challenges because if you don't do what your employer says, I mean, they may not fire you, but they certainly pass you over for promotion. And the problem is that most ethically challenged people are the people who tend to make it to the top of these organizations because they're the ones who have no scruples and no morals. Right?
Right.
It's not just people who are woke liberal idiots that are Gen Z that refuse to do something that's against their principles. But again, you probably shouldn't work for an organization like that in the first place. The Surreal Truth over on YouTube says Austin is right on the money with that one. Thank you. I'll pat myself in the back. He says so many people, including myself, have started working for what they're being paid. No more overworking, and overworking is expected. Yeah, the United States just doesn't have the same work ethic as the rest of the world. And certainly, I don't think we need to be like Sweden and take 2 months off of holiday every year. And I do think that. While I was raised in a Puritan-ish household work ethic, that work in itself is a good. Um, there's got to be some kind of a balance between working yourself to death and being a lazy entitled millennial or Gen Z who doesn't want to work at all and wants to is a communist and wants to live off of everybody else. I guess as I've gotten older and as I've experienced corporate power at its highest levels and corporate power used even at what's the word? What would you call it at its lower levels? The mendacity that exists in the corporate world and things like that. I guess I'm not trying to take the side of the communists in some ways, but in some ways, I think that the American corporation really needs to change. It needs to change its attitude about workers and what they can actually expect from people for what they're paying them.
Sure. And I do think that this is something that is maybe somewhat unique and inherent to American culture because liberty kind of lends itself to that constant push and pull of the free market. And, an employer is wanting to get as much productivity as they can for their money because they want to turn a profit. And, the people working for them want to be treated well and they want to be valued for their time and their contribution in a reasonable way. And so I do think that, there's always that, but that's why unions were started, right? Because people got together and they said, we want to be treated better and you need to do this. And that worked. And so, there's always this ebb and flow. But when I think about this, so my daughter works in retail. She's definitely Gen Z and she's a hard worker, but she also, has pretty firm lines about what she will and she won't do. And she doesn't she doesn't hesitate to tell them that. But the thing is like, they're not going to do anything with her because they know that there are a lot of people that they have on staff who do not work like she does. Like she step in and she get the job done. And because she does that, the tendency is for them to want her to do more and more and more and do other people's jobs too. And, she draws her line, from time to time and says, I won't do that. And I think, for her, and this was her first job in retail. And so there was a little bit of a learning curve. And initially, one of the things that they talked about in that article was that that Gen Z employees don't really they want to dictate like how and when they work and set their schedules, which is fine, but that's one of the things she had to get used to. And it really, what the conversations we had is that it is all about how you go in and the terms you get hired under, and that is so important because if you don't want to work a certain day, you better have that understanding set right up front. Otherwise, the employer has certain expectations and you have to have a certain amount of flexibility if you want hours and if you want to stay employed. But the employer also, if they hire somebody under certain, conditions, they have to respect that as well. I grew up keeping Sabbath, so we never worked on Saturday. And so that was a constant in our lives, was like, if you go to work for somebody, that understanding was upfront so that your employer knew what to expect and you were hired under those conditions. But, not everybody could or was willing to do that. And that's fine. I understand. I could totally understand that. But yeah, I think we are in, especially as our society progresses and advances technologically, we are definitely in a time of adaptation where we're having to find this balance again.
Mm-hmm. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm your host, Austin Peterson. Good morning. Smash that like button if you're watching us over on Rumble or on YouTube or on Facebook as well. I know we still get a few people from there. You can text the show at 573-319-1586. Again, text line 573-319-1586. I'm speaking to Camelia Peterson about Generation Z's work habits. I'd like to segue, though, to a new topic, CJ. You sent me a tweet yesterday from a professor at the Brookings Institute, far left, radical, liberal Brookings Institute. And it's Richard Reeves who posted an article that says, I think we need more interpolitical marriages. He says only 17% of Democrats and 16% of Republicans report having a spouse who has a political identity different from their own. I'll let you give your thoughts before I go on a little rant about this, CJ.
Well, I was thinking about this too, whenever we were talking about Gen Z bringing their politics into the workplace and kind of how you deal with that. But yeah, I saw that. And actually, Richard Reeves, I'm more familiar with from the work that he's done about men and boys and how we view those and this whole toxic masculinity issue. And he has some really good points of view about that. He wrote a book about it. But so when I saw him say this, I was like, well, I mean, okay, I gotta get it, I guess, but I'm not sure that it is practical, if you're not, because if you're not politically aligned, more often than not, you're probably going to have some disagreements on some foundational issues that are probably also moral issues, like, how you define life and what's okay or not okay, or, it just, there's lots of things that are much bigger issues than just your party label, as far as now, and it depends, I think, on how ideological you are. But I do think that it's very rare, and for good reason, that people who are from opposite ends of the political spectrum get together and actually make that work. What is the one couple you can think of that's done that and seemingly done it well?
I know it because his wife endorsed me for president of the United States, Mary Madeline and James Carville.
James Carville, right? That's who I think of every time.
Yeah,
In
but
fact, I
they
Googled them
benefit
real
from
quick.
that. I mean, they're both. I mean, they're not grifters, but I mean, they monetize their politics. So I mean, for them, they probably make more money together. It's like Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton, right? Like, who knows if they actually agree politically or almost on anything. But I mean, they're a couple as a brand, right? So it's in that sense,
Right.
it's not as easy if you're just like, if you're not monetizing, if you're not making millions of dollars on your couplehood, right?
Right.
Stephanie and I, though, I guess we do. We work together on the AP for Liberty shop, and we make many, many hundreds of dollars. If you're just tuning in the Wake Up America show, I'm Austin Peterson. Speaking of the AP for Liberty shop, make sure you check it out. I've got some great new items on there. The Call the Cops, I Don't Give a shirt is selling like hotcakes these days, as well as the Abolish the FBI shirt. So check that out over there today and get yourself one. CJ, I'll just say this on the couplehood and the interpolitical marriages. I think it's a pipe dream. Knowing that politics is more important than ever. I mean, we're talking about our base values and ethics there. I think if you marry somebody interpolitically, you're setting yourself up for an acrimonious divorce. And I think that it's this kind of like this liberal desire to kind of like, oh, we're, intermixing is good and plurality is good and things like that. But when you create a family, you're creating a sort of you're bringing two together as one, right? You're becoming one unit in that sense. And it's not to say that there aren't differences between the two and the couples, but on some things you have to be united. And if the family itself is an institution against the state, as we probably believe that, I'm not trying to speak for you, but I think you probably and I probably agree on that, then we definitely need to be of like mind of our views towards society and government if we're going to have a partnership together of that level.
Sure, I think so. One of the interesting things I haven't had this comes out of a report that is really long and it has lots of different factors in it. But one of the things that when I skimmed through it that I noticed too is that it talks about how that more people um, who are not of the same faith necessarily are getting married and making that work. And that kind of makes me think about how we've talked about there's sort of been this shift from religion to politics as religion, and which has led to our political polarization. I think because for a lot of people, maybe their lack of religion in that respect has led to making politics their religion. And so, what do people get the most outraged and angry about? I mean, they get outraged and angry about politics and the other side and this political divide in the country. So I really think that that's been a shift. It used to be that you not only that really religion was kind of the biggest thing when you were looking at who you were going to raise a family with, because if you didn't agree on your faith, then you were going to have trouble raising your children. But they don't hear about that so much anymore. But we do hear about it in terms of politics. But you're right. I mean, it is a lot more challenging to raise children if you don't have some basic foundational agreements, because it's hard for children. They need that consistency when they're younger. And yes, as they are getting older, they have to learn how to think critically for themselves. And they end up having to make that choice about what they will choose to believe. And I think that people who are in this position of raising children with another parent who is not in agreement with them on these issues, I think that can be done. And I have seen people work through that and handle, divorce and co-parenting in healthy ways. But I think it's very much a reality that there will be challenges that come with that. And you have to go into that eyes wide open.
I completely agree. Camelia Peterson, anything else you want to share before we let you go today?
Well, you know what? I didn't do this the other day, but I wanted to give a shout out to one of our Missouri state senators who the other day got quoted by the liberal St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Well, not quoted. They said this about him. And basically, they were wanting him to weigh in on, I don't know, something about, sales tax on guns and ammo or something like that. And what they said about him in describing him, though, was that he was at his post as usual, arguing for less government. And I was like, yes, like, go Missouri. Like, can you ask for a better endorsement than that? So for each and every one of us today, may we be at our usual post in fighting for less government and more liberty.
That's where you and I are right now. Camelia Peterson, thank you very much for your time today. We always love your segments. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Bye.
Thank you very much. What do you think of Camelia Peterson? Send us a text 573-319-1586. All right. So because I don't have much time, I'm not going to go to commercial break, and I've got Phil Kerpen coming up at 8:30 to talk about Joe Biden's very first veto. What did he veto and why? Well, I'll tell you at 8:30 when Phil joins us. But I've been wanting to talk about this all morning. Let's compare and contrast these two Gillette razors commercials. This first Gillette razor commercial here was this one was from 4 years ago, and I'm going to play one from you from 1989. Notice the difference between these two. Take a listen to this.
Bullying.
The Me Too movement against sexual harassment.
Masculinity.
Is this the best a man can get? Is it? We can't hide from it.
Sexual harassment is taking over.
It's been going on far too long. We can't laugh it off.
Who's the daddy?
What I actually think she's trying to say.
Making the same old excuses.
Now, see, for a brief second there, I feel like he was actually trying to help that woman in the boardroom, because she obviously said something really stupid. She had a look on her face like she had said something really dumb. And, her boss was there to try and help her. So what I think she actually was saying, because, obviously, like, dropped a turd in the middle of the room. It's like, ladies, accept some help when you need it. Come on, let's go.
Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
But something finally changed.
Allegations regarding sexual assault and sexual harassment.
This is how the left sees men.
And there will be no going back. Because we believe in the best in men.
Men need to hold other men accountable.
Smile, sweetie.
Come on.
To say the right thing.
Sometimes you do need
to act the right way.
Bro, not cool.
Some already
bro,
are.
don't talk to a woman. There we go. See, I love it. There we go. A beautiful woman walks by, and he sees her, and here he is. He wants to say hello.
Bro, not cool.
Bro, not cool. Don't talk to a woman. Don't talk to that woman. Don't you dare talk to that one. You can't speak to a woman in public any day. That's toxic masculinity.
Some already are. In ways big
Yo, men,
and small.
They're bullies.
I am strong.
But some
encourage your little girls, though. Don't encourage men to possibly go out and date a woman, but encourage your little girls, though. The girls should be strong, not the men.
That's not how we treat each other.
See that kid? The thing is, all those kids over there. That kid obviously stole his lunch money, and now him and all his buddies are going over there to beat his ass like they should. So I don't call that bullying. The kid shouldn't have stole his lunch money.
Because the boys
okay?
watching
Yeah,
today
shouldn't have stole his lunch money. Take that kid to jail.
will be the men.
The boys watching today will be the men of tomorrow. Yes, they will. Let's watch the Gillette commercial from 1989. This is much more up my alley.
You're looking sharp. You're looking good. You've come so far. And we know how to make the most of who you are. Father to son, it's what we've always done. Gillette.
Yeah, good father. Can you imagine? Imagine being treated like this. Our dads had it so good. Like they didn't appreciate how good they were treated. We treat men like dog shit today. Let's continue. Look at that. A proud father with his son.
The best a man can get. On so many faces, it's plain to see. We give you all we have to give. For all a man can be. Where the race is run, you're the champion. Gillette.
The Gillette Atra Plus system with the Lubra Smooth strip for the best a man can get.
The best a man can get.
What do you think? Is that the best a man can get? Yeah, our fathers had it so good. I mean, I'm not going to say that I'm crying right now, but I will say yesterday that I definitely teared up a little bit watching that segment there, that old commercial there. Yeah, absentee fathers, dads out of their life, men going their own way. I wonder why. Why can't I get a good man? I'm 35 years old. No, I won't anybody marry me or be with me. I'll have to spend nothing but hatred and bile, spilled it from feminist hatred and bile for the last decade. Why can't I get a good man? I wonder why. Is this the best a man can get? I don't know. Maybe not. Some of the best you can get right here on the Wake Up America show. Phil Kerpen, one of the best men out there. He's going to explain to us why one of the worst men out there, Joe Biden, vetoed a bill to protect woke policies. His very first veto as president. We'll talk about that when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Good morning to the Cantina crew. This is Elon Musk, the CEO of Twitter. And I just want to say thank you for watching the Wake Up America show. I've decided that Austin Peterson will be the new CEO of Twitter.com, effective immediately. First thing to do, though, is I've got to go and blast off into space.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that at the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
What would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? You can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be. There is no typical firefighter.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that the shot can put chemicals in you that will make you more sensitive to 5G? Do you love America? Do you want more freedom? Do you like smoking hot red-headed libertarians? Then the AP for Liberty shop is for you! Check out all the awesome new merch and have a happy new year! Fight the deep state, reject the Antichrist. Visit AP for Liberty shop and get your patriotic merchandise now, or the deep state wins!
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's great to see our audience growing so big over on rumble.com. Let's give them a big shout out this morning and applause to all of our rumblers. It's very exciting to see a free speech platform being successful and in turn helping us to become successful. Make sure that you smash that like button over there. I think you have to be signed in on Rumble to be able to like the post and drop a comment. Introduce yourself. We'd love to make friends. Also, a big shout out, of course, to the Cantina crew, the OGs over on YouTube as well. We're grateful to have you all watching us today. Joe Biden issues his first veto A lot of shareholders and major corporations agree with we liberty lovers that you go woke, you go broke. But Joe Biden doesn't seem to think so, and a lot of Democrats disagree as well. It's that environmental, social, and governance standard that we've been talking about a lot on this show. Phil Kerpen is joining us right now. He's the president of American Commitment. He's joining us to talk about Joe Biden's very first veto. Good morning, Phil. Thank you for joining us on the show today.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you here, Phil. So explain to us very briefly what Joe Biden's veto means and what it's all about.
Yeah, I need to go back a little bit further, because if I just tell you he vetoed a bill to reverse a rule that reversed another rule, your head will spin and it won't make any sense. So we got to go back about 5 or 6 years, and when the ESG movement, when the left decided that one of the ways they would advance their agenda was to change the definition of the word fiduciary from what it always meant for all of history, which is acting in the financial interests of the people who entrust their money to you, to this new concept, which is that to be a fiduciary, you need to advance the interests of the people whose money you're managing, including non-pecuniary interests. And so if you save them from climate change or advance LGBTQ or social justice or whatever other non-pecuniary interests you think your investors might have, then you haven't violated your fiduciary duty, even if they have less money as a result of you doing that. And so the left essentially, in order to get rid of the concept that when you manage someone else's money, you have to act in their interests, their financial interests, they redefined a word. And of course, the left loves to redefine words. And so, once you redefine the word fiduciary into essentially meaninglessness, now people who are managing retirement accounts can make their investments based on politics, and they don't have to worry about lawsuits or being held accountable or, any consequences to that. And so this movement was done without any legislative or regulatory change, just sort of the left wing captured the investment world in Wall Street, and they just changed the definition of the word, and they started saying, we can act in the non-financial fiduciary interests of investors. And the Trump Labor Department prohibited this. So the Trump Labor Department said, no, actually, the word fiduciary means what it always meant until 5 minutes ago. You've got to, if you're running someone's retirement account, you've got to invest based on their financial interests. That's what it means to be a fiduciary. And so the Labor Department under Trump sort of cut off this whole avenue of using pension funds as sort of politicized tools without regard to the investment returns. The Biden came in, changed all the leadership of the Department of Labor, and they put out a new rule that reversed the Trump rule, said anything goes. You want to use non-pecuniary factors, that's fine. Essentially, what had previously just been sort of this attempt with no force of law behind it to redefine what the word fiduciary meant, now it became sort of official. In the Biden administration, fiduciary doesn't have to be financial, therefore it's kind of meaningless, and anything goes, invest on politics, what have you. Congress actually overturned that. So they passed a bill. It's pretty hard to get anything through Congress, especially when you've got, a Democrat Senate and a Republican House. But Congress passed a bill to overturn the Biden rule, put the Trump rule back in, essentially say fiduciary is financial only in the context of retirement plans. Biden vetoed it, however, and that veto was sustained. So at the end of all of that, that's as straightforward as I can make it. There's a lot of back and forth, Austin. But at the end of all of that, because of the veto, now people who manage retirement accounts, who manage retirement funds, pension funds, 401ks, whatever it is, company retirement fund, they can now, consistent with their fiduciary duty, consider non-pecuniary factors, i.e. advancing left-wing politics for you to save you from global warming or whatever. Even if it means you have less money in your account, you have less money for retirement. And I think that's pretty outrageous.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. I'm speaking to Phil Kerpen. He is the president of American Commitment. We're talking about President Joe Biden's very first veto and what it means. If I could sort of dumb it down for the audience, I mean, I am a musical theater major myself. As I understand it, Biden vetoed a bill that was passed that would have prevented corporations from not fulfilling their fiduciary duties to their clients by actually trying to increase profitability quarter over quarter. That's the job of the CEO, and instead allows corporations to engage in activism with their clients' funds to push leftist woke politics. If that's correct or incorrect, just let me know there, Phil. But
the only thing that's a little bit off is this is specific to retirement funds.
Retirement
it's not
funds.
directly on corporate behavior, but this is specific to retirement plans. But, the concept is similar, of course. Once you start saying that fiduciary obligations don't have to be financial in nature, you could see how that could extend to other types of, shareholder protection theories and so forth. And so they're not quite, this doesn't quite deal with all corporations. It's specific to retirement accounts, but it's headed in that direction.
I mean, we've sort of created monsters here with these retirement companies, Phil, because anybody who's got a 401k or an IRA or any kind of special retirement account set up is probably got some money invested in these companies like BlackRock and many others, Vanguard and others. The left seems to know, the power of those corporations and has decided to invest their time into taking over these corporations and turning them against us.
Yeah, no question about that. The good news, it's unfortunate that we weren't able to get, to get that Trump rule on the books that would have prohibited a lot of this mischief. But the good news is that people do vote with their money to a large extent, and a lot of money is in accounts that people can't control, in big pension funds, maybe government pension funds, union pension funds, and those people, I think, are a little bit out of luck. Their money is going to be squandered on politics, but a lot of people now have their money in self-managed accounts where you can choose what investments you have, and you can steer away from these ESG funds and get things that are broadly diversified. And what we saw last year in particular in 2022 is the ESG funds did really badly. I mean, the overall market did badly, but ESG funds did much worse because they boycott oil and gas. And so when you boycott a major sector, you're going to do much worse than the overall market when that sector outperforms, when that sector has a good year. And, the whole theory of retirement investing, you generally want to be broadly diversified. You don't want to exclude sectors because that's going to hurt your long-term returns. And so to the extent that people can control where their money's going, they're largely pulling out of these funds. And I think that's a really positive trend. The challenge is there are a lot of pools of capital where people can't choose. Someone else is choosing for them. And that's why you want them to be required to act as a fiduciary, to act in your financial interests. And Biden has really undercut that. And the other thing that I worry about, Austin, is, when the California and the Illinois and these other liberal huge pension funds squander their money on politics, and then they come hat in hand for a bailout from the federal government, they're probably going to get it. We'll try to stop it, but they're probably going to get it. So we're probably going to pay as taxpayers also.
So what does the average, citizen do about something like this, Phil? I mean, the people who listen to our show, probably, salt of the earth, humble, regular people like myself, we want to fight back against it. We feel a little disempowered. We've got families, we've got, church, we've got responsibilities and things like that. We understand what you're saying and that this is a serious problem. How do we kind of get involved to, with our own activism to fight back against leftist activism? I mean, it can feel, very intimidating when you're talking about one man up against BlackRock,
Well, I think there are a few things you can do. First of all, I think that to the extent you can, if your own retirement funds are in a self-managed account where you have the choice of investments, do your research and pick ones that are not making political decisions. I like low-cost, broadly diversified index funds. Now, if you are already invested that way and you say, well, there's nothing else I can do, you also should talk to the fund companies that you've got your money in and say, look, when you vote on these various proxy questions and so forth, I don't want you voting for all the ESG stuff. That's not in my interest. And they hear from enough people, maybe they'll change their behavior in that regard. They want to keep the capital flowing into their fund, so we can use sort of market pressure on this. Also, I would suggest there's some things we can do on the state level. And a lot of states have already taken actions to protect their state pension funds and other state investments from ESG. And so I would say contact your legislators, contact your governor, your state treasurer also to see if they're doing everything they can in that regard. But I think, the big thing is just doing what you're doing by having me on, talking about this, bringing some pressure to bear on this. Look, one of the reasons that energy prices are so high right now is not just because we have bad energy policies, but because we've got huge pools of capital on Wall Street that are boycotting oil and gas and make it very hard to finance oil and gas projects. So we need people to know about these things, to push back. We need there to be some awareness, and we need there to be some consequences. Everyone knows BlackRock, and I think they're on their heels a little bit, but there are a lot of other companies that are doing similar things. And so, I think that the more we sort of bring this to light, and the more that we make our own investment decisions sort of self-consciously. If you've got someone who manages your investments, tell them, I do not want any of my money going to ESG. I want you to invest based on economics and finances only, not based on political objectives, as you may understand them. And I think we get enough people doing that, we'll get these companies to start coming out and saying, hey, even though Biden says we can consider non-pecuniary factors, we're not going to. We're going to act only in your financial interests, because that'll be good business for them to do that. And so I think, the more we talk about, the more we push back on these companies, the more we'll be able to get them to make that commitment.
Information is power. Maybe this is something that you already do, and if not, maybe it's a good idea for you guys to engage in it. Not to tell you how to do your job or anything, but I mean, have you put out a list of retirement
Yeah,
funds?
we've got actually another group that I work with, Committee to Unleash Prosperity, that I work with Steve Moore and Art Laffer and Steve Forbes on, has a website. It's going to launch very soon. And I will let you know when that launches, that actually rates every investment company in America on their votes on proxy matters. So you can see what they're doing in terms of ESG on a wide array of the proxy votes, which is really how a lot of this power is exerted over companies. And so it's in the works. It's pretty close to final. And when we've got that out, I will circulate it. But yeah, to answer your question, yes, we will have a rating of these companies that people can use to sort of hold them accountable.
I think that's a great way to go about this, because more knowledge about who is running these corporations and what their viewpoints are is going to be important, because I am one of those activist libertarians who think that we need to take the fight to the left, and we do need to engage in boycotts. As a matter of fact, there's this company called, I didn't oppose the Bud Light thing, even though I don't care about, full-grown adults doing whatever they do with their bodies. I just happen to agree with fighting back against the left and the culture wars. But tell us about your group. What is it that you guys do over there? Because there's all these shadowy groups in Washington, D.C. So, Phil, tell us a little bit about American Commitment and what you do there.
Well, we're a national free market advocacy group. We work really on all the fiscal, economic, and regulatory issues. And what we try to do is kind of pick the fights where the outcome is in doubt, if you will, where a little bit more citizen education engagement might actually make the difference and move things in a more free market direction. So we do a lot of letters to Congress, comments into regulatory agencies, stuff like that. But we never ask you to do it just because we want a donation or just because we're trying to build a list. We ask people to take action when we really think it might make a difference. And so we were very active on this bill. And, obviously, it's unfortunate that it was vetoed, but we were pretty happy that we were able to get it through the House and the Senate and really kind of elevate it as an issue. And so that's the kind of thing we work on. And all our stuff is on AmericanCommitment.org if people want to take a look. And just to give me further credibility with your audience, Austin, I will mention that I was a contributor to your presidential campaign.
Yeah, I think you were one of the very first contributors. Yeah, actually, you were one of the very first contributors who believed in me before a lot of other people did. And I'm guessing it's not because I'm rich or powerful or could do anything for you, politically, like a lot of people make donations for in DC. I've been guessing it's because that I actually stand for the exact same principles that you do, free markets. But that actually leads me to my next question, Phil, and I'm deeply curious about your thoughts on this. I keep reading articles, for example, recently about the Heritage Foundation dropping largely their view in advocacy for free markets. I spoke to what's his name from the National Review, Rich, last name escapes me,
Lowry?
Rich Lowry. And I was like, the National Review used to be the magazine that advocated for free markets, fiscal conservatism. Maybe they were more war hawkish than the typical libertarian, but they were for free markets broadly. And sure, there are some people who are still like that. But when I asked Rich about why so many on the right, on the conservative right, if you will, are dropping their belief in free markets, they're embracing a Marco Rubio view of the common good conservatism, or they're embracing the populist, Theodore Rooseveltian sort of antitrust views of Josh Hawley, or they've gone full Trumpian in regards to ending free trade, for example, and getting us out of trade agreements that have actually benefited the American economy and immigration and so forth. How do you respond when being a free marketeer as you are, when you see institutions like the Heritage Institute saying, free markets, yeah, that's a thing of the past? Or like Rich Lowry told me, I know he didn't say it to you, but we've got to change with the times, if you will. I mean, do free markets not apply anymore? Do they not work? Does capitalism not work, Phil?
Well, obviously, capitalism's been the greatest force for human good in the history of the world, and it's not close. I mean, you look at the amount of material progress that we made with the ascendancy of global capitalism, and we've accomplished more in 100 years than in the previous, 10,000 years in terms of improvement of, standards of living and kind of quality of life. And so I think it's very dangerous. I think that, this is something that often happens. Countries get very prosperous and then they forget what allowed that to happen, and they move away from it, and they undermine that prosperity. And of course, you can lose it very quickly. Argentina had similar standards of living to the United States, 50 years ago. And you look at what happens when you start getting policy wrong. You can go, standards of living can decline very, very rapidly, much more rapidly than people generally appreciate. And so I think it's a very dangerous trend. And what's happened essentially is, as corporate America has become more and more left-wing culturally, you've got sort of this conservative backlash that says these people are our cultural enemies, therefore we should attack them and punish them economically. And I understand the impulse. These people are acting in a way that's contrary to what we believe in, so we're going to punish them for it. We're going to strike back at them. But we didn't believe in free market principles because it was good for corporate America, because it was because they were political allies or something like that. We believed in these principles, and I continue to believe in these principles because they produce by far superior outcomes economically, and they allow for maximum human freedom, which of course is an end in itself. And so I think it's very dangerous. The extent to which various players on the right are now saying we're going to forget about, and I think this goes back to when Bush said he was going to chuck his free market principles with the bailout to save the free market. So we've had multiple points of departure, but I do agree with you that it's kind of accelerating in recent years. You read, for instance, the antitrust chapters or even the labor chapters of Heritage's agenda for the next presidential administration. And it's essentially all left wing, and it's essentially all interventionists using the power of government. And look, I hate the big tech companies as much as anyone, but the idea that government taking control of them and breaking them up is going to somehow produce a better outcome is insane. It's completely insane. And so I think, one of the challenges that we've got, Austin, is we've got to figure out how to connect the dots so that we can say to people, look, we're with you on these cultural fights, and corporate America shouldn't be doing all these left-wing things. But the solutions have got to be solutions that are consistent with free markets. We can't undermine the engine of economic freedom and prosperity in order to solve these problems. We've got to find other ways to go about it that are consistent with our principles, or we're going to end up in a much worse place, especially because anything conservatives try to do to use the power of big government to advance a conservative purpose will eventually be turned against them in the next Democratic administration, or even during their own administration, thanks to bureaucrats subverting it. Democrats are much better at using government power than Republicans will ever be. So even just viewed in its own narrow terms of not even caring about principle, but just sort of interest group stuff, it's still going to backfire. So I am very concerned about that.
Boy, that is good stuff, Phil. Boy, you're a great commentator. Phil, tell us a little bit more about where we can find out about what you do at American Commitment, where we can follow you online.
AmericanCommitment.org is the website. You can also sign up for the email list on there. And I'm also very active on Twitter. I'm almost addicted. And that's my last name, Kerpen, K-E-R-P-E.
K-E-R-P-E-N. You can see it spelled at the bottom of the screen if you're watching us live right now, which many people are. Phil, grateful to have you on the show today. We'll be glad to have you back sometime real soon. Keep up the fight for freedom and free markets. We appreciate you, sir.
All right. Have a great one, Austin.
Thank you very much. What did you think of Phil Kerpen? Send us a text, 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. All right, I'm not going to have time to get to the best 80s movies ranked. I know that you're really upset about that one, but I am going to have time to show you something. I want to be starting something. You got to be starting something. There it is. All right, check it out. This is from Andy Opperman. He got his Ludwig von Mises bust. Check it out. It looks like he's got the full collection of the apforlibertyshop.com Buddhas right there. You can see it. If you're a fan of free markets, you're probably a fan of Ludwig von Mises. You can see his bust right there next to George Washington Buddha, Thomas Jefferson Buddha, Benjamin Franklin Buddha, and Donald Trump Buddha. You can find all of these items here are only sold exclusively at apforlibertyshop.com. Nobody else has these items for sale in their shop. Remember, it's free shipping as well. So get that deal while you still can. Head to apforlibertyshop.com. I'm going to save the 80s movies for tomorrow's show, which I think you'll enjoy. One last plug though before I let you go here on this one. Nice crotch shot there, right? I do have nice legs, but check this out. These are my AP for Liberty Shop exclusive. I designed these sneakers. These are my American flag sneakers. You can see I got wires all over the place here trying to get this show done. There you go. Look at this. Check it out. So in the tongue, you can see right there is like the American, the stars right there. And it also appears on the back of the sneaker. I don't know if I can get the angle right, but on the back of the sneaker, there we go. Check it out. Pretty awesome. There's the stars right there. So these take a little bit to print and to ship. So here's the thing. Picture yourself on the 4th of July with these bad boys right there. We have them in men's sneakers, women's sneakers, and we have women's canvas shoes versions of these. And the nice thing is that it's kind of a grunge American flag. So if your shoe gets dirty or something like that, it's not going to like be all like, sparkling white that you have to worry about getting clean off. So check them out over at apforlibertyshop.com. Patriotic sneakers. If you want to look at our shoe collection, just go in and type shoes at apforlibertyshop.com. Get yourself some awesome sneakers. Again, they do take a couple of weeks, 2 weeks, sometimes maybe 3, to get printed and shipped out, but they do they have my logo on them on the inside, and they come in a really nice box. So go to apforlibertyshop.com. And also one really fun thing. Do you follow me on Instagram? Because I'll tell you why. I've got this really awesome new trivia game that I've installed into my Instagram account. So check it out at instagram.com/apforliberty. And direct message me. What's up, J Life? Nice to see you, buddy. Over on Rumble. Do me a favor, head over to my Instagram account and send me a direct message with just this number. DM me 1776. You can do that right now. Head over to instagram.com/AP4Liberty and DM me the number 1776, because I've got this awesome little fun libertarian quiz game that you can do, but you have to actually type in the number 1776. Don't write out the word, or don't write anything else. Just type in 1776 in my DMs. Slide into my DMs, baby. And you get to play a fun little libertarian trivia game. And if you get the answers right, there's a free gift from me to you that you get right away. So you have to get the answers. I think it's like you got to get 3 out of 5 correct. So if you get them correct, then you get a gift, free gift. It's nice. And I made the gift myself, and I'm actually really proud of it. So everybody who wins the trivia game gets the free gift. You got to get 3 out of 5 correct. Do you think you can answer those American history, libertarian history quiz questions correctly? It's hard to say that 3 times twice. Libertarian quiz questions quickly. Head over to instagram.com/AP4Liberty. Send me that 1776 DM, and you will get a fun little trivia quiz. All right. Did you enjoy the show today? I think it was pretty good. I was having a good time. Camellia was great. Phil Kerpen was great. Charles Adams I think he gets his own applause. If you missed it, you got to rewind it and go back and watch Charles Adams. He was at 30 minutes into the show. I thought that was an awesome segment. I'm definitely going to have him back. All right, got to run. DM me over on Instagram, the number 1776. Play that little libertarian trivia quiz, and head over to AP4libertyshop.com. Get yourself an awesome pair of patriotic sneaks. You want to order them now so that they can be here by the 4th of July, right? Because you want to get them in so you can look awesome at the barbecue. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks so much. Don't forget to click that like and subscribe to the channel before you leave. I see all my awesome Rumblers over there. One of my favorite things to have happen is as soon as I leave the show, I got 71 people on Rumble right now, is I see all these Rumblers start following my channel afterwards, and it just totally makes my day. I appreciate you guys. It's exciting to see how many followers we're getting over on Rumble these days. Many bigger than YouTube, but still 70, 89. We've got over 100 people watching us live right now. The Wake Up America show is absolutely killing it, and it's thanks to the support of viewers and listeners just like you. Have a great one. Tomorrow's Family Friday. My wife, Stephanie Peterson, smoking hot redheaded libertarian wife, will be joining us in studio, and then we will talk about the top 10 greatest 80s movies ranked. So tomorrow will be fun. Have some freedom and have some family. We'll see you tomorrow on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Have a great day, guys.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Peterson stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apeforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apeforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit aporlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.